Imagine standing before an ancient and revered temple, a place that has witnessed the miraculous tales of humanity for thousands of years. Have you ever wondered about the secrets hidden behind these ancient stone tablets? Let us embark on a journey through time, exploring the stories behind the veil of history to gain a deeper understanding of the Babylonian Empire and its great kings. Cast your mind back to the distant era of Mesopotamia, where the lifeblood of civilization flowed through this land. Here, along the banks of the Euphrates and Tigris rivers, where the sun rises every day, the Babylonian Empire emerged as a shining star amidst the darkness of history. But have you ever pondered the origins of this empire? Why did Babylon become the center of ancient civilization? Let us delve deeper into the time of thousands of years ago. Think about the neighboring kingdoms, such as Assyria, Mitanni, and Hittite. They were rivals, protective shields of their territories, but also close neighbors. Did Babylon ever face challenges from them? And most importantly, how did Babylon rise from those struggles and victories? Consider the great kings of Babylon, like Hammurabi, who established famous legal codes, or Nebuchadnezzar II, who built the renowned Tower of Babel and elevated this empire to the pinnacle of prosperity. Their stories are tales of power, patience, and loyalty to their homeland. And if you wish to delve deeper, think about the daily lives of the Babylonian people. How did they live? Which gods did they worship? How did they evolve in their history and culture? Let us explore and learn about the Babylonian Empire, an integral part of human heritage, through the historical narratives and remnants that still exist to this day. In the year 1894 BCE, Sumuabum, a leader of the Amorites, established a small kingdom along the eastern banks of the Euphrates River. This marked the beginning of a significant historical journey, as the first dynasty of the Amorites initiated the construction of the city of Babylon. Later, this city became the center of the ancient Babylonian Empire, one of the oldest empires in world history. Babylon became the administrative center of the region during the reign of the great kings of the Neo-Sumerian Empire, who ruled from the city of Ur until the end of the 3rd millennium BCE. Scholars today refer to this group of kings as the Third Dynasty of Ur, as only 2 dynasties prior to them are known from Ur. At the time Sumuabum and his allies settled in their new home along the Euphrates, the Neo-Sumerian Empire had long ceased to exist. Instead, there was a fragmentation of small states, with rulers calling themselves kings, although in reality, they were little more than local lords, often encroaching on each other's territories to collect slaves and resources. However, Sumuabum and his successors seemed more interested in building a lasting legacy. With their innovations and investments, Babylon grew into a large city, renowned for its vibrant textile industry. In the ensuing centuries, the city became the center of the Babylonian kingdom. This is a story of progress and decline, of great kings and their noble and sometimes unscrupulous actions. Babylon, with its beauty and magnificent culture, has captivated the imagination of humanity from ancient to modern times. It is the tale of a city that once stood at the center of the world. Over more than a century, the kings of the Ur III dynasty, ruling a superpower called the Neo-Sumerian Empire, ushered in an era of prosperity and cultural achievements. They restored the Sumerian language to preeminence after nearly 150 years of Akkadian rule. However, like the Akkadian Empire centuries before, the Neo-Sumerian Empire could not sustain its existence in the long run. The emergence of the Amorites, along with challenges such as famine and ineffective leadership, contributed to the collapse of the Ur Empire. A specific example of the difficult situation at the end of the Neo-Sumerian dynasty can be seen in correspondence between its last king, Ibisin, and one of his commanders, Ishbira. Sumuabum had instructed Ishbira to purchase a large quantity of grain from the cities of Isin and Kazalu and bring it to the capital city of Ur. However, Ishbira responded that he could not fulfill the king's command because the Amorites had ravaged the country and blocked all the roads to Ur. In one of his letters to the king, he wrote, "Inform the king, my lord, this is what I, Ishbi, your servant, have to say. You commanded me to go to Isin and Kazalu to buy grain, at the rate of 1 shekel of silver. I spent 20 minas of silver to buy grain. I heard that the Amorite army invaded your land. I brought back 72,000 minas of grain, but all of this grain was seized by the Amorites. I cannot use this grain for planting. They are stronger than me, and I cannot resist. With the migration of the Amorites and other serving groups to and around the urban centers of Mesopotamia, the emergence of new regional dialects occurred. Babylonia was named after the city of Babylon, which later became the cultural and religious center of this civilization and many others around the world. Although there was linguistic and cultural uniformity, politically, the land of Babylonia was fragmented. Most of the emerging leaders and lords rose from the ashes of the Neo-Sumerian Empire, belonging to the Amorite and Akkadian lineages. During this chaotic period, 2 kingdoms eventually rose, one around the city of Isin and the other around the city of Larsa. Despite establishing independent new dynasties, most rulers of these kingdoms and other smaller ones sought to assert some kind of origin or legitimacy from the previous 3rd dynasty. These new kings, even the Amorite ones, regarded themselves and their kingdoms as successors to the political, administrative, and cultural heritage of the 3rd dynasty of Ur. For example, during Ishbira's reign and the subsequent kings in Essene, the Sumerian language remained the language of all commands, writing, literature, and even royal hymns, with hymns taken from kings like Shulgi, the 5th king of this dynasty in Isin, and Lipit Ishtar in Larsa. Ishtar even composed his own laws in Sumerian, although they may have considered themselves heirs of the ancient Sumerian kings. The rulers of the Isin dynasty all had Akkadian titles. Under the reign of Ishbira, Ur liberated itself from the Elamites, and by the end of his dynasty, he may have controlled cities like Uruk, Larsa, and Eridu in the south, along with Murad, Borsippa, Kazalu, and possibly even Eshnuna in the north. However, such conquests only lasted for a short time. The Amorite leaders were also gaining ground in southern Mesopotamia, and under the reign of Edina Dagan, clashes with them became more frequent. At times, he lost control of cities like Nippur and Uruk, but quickly regained them after launching a counterattack. However, under the reign of Enlil-Bani, Nippur was completely lost to the new Amorite kings of Larsa. Larsa, an ancient city, began to be ruled by Amorite lords like Sabaya and Gungunam. From then on, Larsa's fortunes seemed to rise. While Larsa was an important city, during the period from 1900 to 1800 BCE, cities like Kish, Uruk, and Sippar also became independent kingdoms with their own Amorite rulers. In 1894 BCE, an Amorite leader named Sumwabum established a small kingdom along the Euphrates River, with Babylon as its capital. The city of Babylon, though small, seems to have been quickly occupied by force. All the information we have about the period when Sumwabum founded his kingdom and initiated the first dynasty of Babylon is concentrated here. Documentation of Sumwabum's reign shows that he made significant efforts to build structures for Babylon. This was significant because, like other Amorite kings, Sumwabum was frequently involved in territorial conflicts with neighboring countries. However, he also recognized the power of diplomacy and marital alliances, and soon after, he and his successors expanded the territory and built small fortresses around Babylon. Additionally, they had to address trade issues and disputes with neighboring kingdoms. In a letter to his subordinate official, the 4th king of the dynasty, April-Sin, complained that foreign merchant caravans were acting as spies and needed to be reprimanded. At the same time, Babylon was building the kingdom of Larsa in the southeast, expanding to become the most powerful country in Mesopotamia and controlling trade activities from the Gulf region. Elam was also one of the wealthiest countries at that time. In 1822 BCE, Rim-Sin ascended to power and began an expansion campaign of Larsa's borders, especially to the north and west. In 1810 BCE, he targeted Uruk, then ruled by an Amorite king named Anam. Rim-Sin realized that he could not face the attack from Larsa alone, so he wrote to the 5th king of Babylon, Sin-Muballit, for support. The two were distant relatives, as one of the daughters of the second king of Babylon, Sumula-el, married a king of Uruk named Anum. Details of the battle are unclear, but Rim-Sin emerged victorious. When Hammurabi succeeded to the throne from his father, Sin-Muballit, around 1792 BCE, Babylon faced a period full of challenges and dangers. In the first year of his reign, Babylon was besieged by several kingdoms, three of which were considered the greatest threats. To the south, the kingdom of Larsa existed as a long-standing rival of Babylon. Under the rule of Rim-Sin, Larsa controlled the Tigris River Valley, a formidable opponent as his father had clashed with them twice without gaining victory. To the southeast, Eshnunna was also seeking to expand its territory. Eshnunna aimed to expand westward and southward. To the north, becoming an increasingly greater threat, was under the rule of Shamshi-Adad. Hammurabi realized that dealing with these challenges required a wise strategy. In the first 5 years of his reign, he focused on consolidating and developing Babylon. He invested in infrastructure, constructing transportation facilities like bridges across the Euphrates River, and developed agriculture to enhance the economic and military strength of the country. In 1787 BCE, around the 6th or 7th year of Hammurabi's reign, he initiated a significant military campaign to counter the kingdom of Larsa and captured two major cities, Uruk and Isin. Although this victory initially seemed successful, Rim-Sin later reoccupied both cities, demonstrating the ongoing confrontation between the two empires. In the summer of 1775 BCE, Shamshi-Adad passed away, and his empire collapsed shortly thereafter. Most of the kingdoms he had conquered declared independence, and the kingdom of Mari became one of them. Zimri-Lim, who proclaimed himself the prince of the Mari dynasty, ascended to the throne and regained the Golden Throne with the support of Yarim-Lim, the king of the Amorite kingdom to the west of Mari. Zimri-Lim married the daughter of Yarim-Lim, strengthening the alliance between the two kingdoms. As Shamshi-Adad's empire was overthrown, the king of Eshnunna, Ibalpiel II, decided that this was the time to seize whatever he could from his once great opponent. He then advanced further south towards Babylon in 1772 BCE and captured the city of Rapikom. This alarmed Hammurabi. Immediately, Hammurabi had to intervene to protect his territory. He allied with Zimri-Lim and directed his army to counterattack to retake the city of Rapikom, an important trade hub. The conflict between Babylon and neighboring kingdoms became more tense in the mid-1760s BCE, when Hammurabi had to deal with the kingdom of Eshnunna in northern Mesopotamia, and later with the ruler of Alam, Sukalma. Hammurabi formed an alliance with King Zimri-Lim of Mari and Sukalma to defeat Eshnunna, a goal they achieved through cooperation. However, when Sukalma showed no intention of withdrawing and Mesopotamia became an attractive land. Although Hammurabi and Zimri-Lim were not enemies, they also did not fully trust each other. But both faced a common threat from Sukalma's Elam being too powerful, so they decided to cooperate to counter Elam. Zimri-Lim called for additional assistance from his father-in-law, Yarim-Lim, to reinforce their ranks. When Elam was defeated, Hammurabi quickly annexed Sukalma's territory into Babylon while Sukalma's forces were driven out of the area. Hammurabi then redirected his army southward to invade and incorporate the kingdom of Larsa when Rim-Sin at the time had become elderly. He justified this action by Rim-Sin not responding when he needed support in the war against Eshnunna and Elam. However, when Hammurabi's ally, Zimri-Lim, refused to send troops to support the campaign, Hammurabi became angry, and after defeating Larsa and ending Rim-Sin's reign, he broke the alliance, merging all of Zimri-Lim's territory into Babylon. This included major cities like Mari, Ashur, and Nineveh in northern Mesopotamia. While it is uncertain whether Zimri-Lim was there, it is possible that he left Babylon to engage in political activities in some other kingdoms in the west. From then on, Hammurabi held control of the most powerful country in the Middle East. Although all these wars and conquests lasted only 4 years out of Hammurabi's over 40-year reign, most of his time was spent building and developing the city of Babylon. This contributed to turning Babylon into one of the most important cultural, political, and economic centers in ancient history. In his 33rd year of reign, Hammurabi returned to Babylon after a series of campaigns that conquered most of Mesopotamia, becoming the most powerful ruler in the region. During times not occupied by war, Hammurabi dedicated time to various construction projects, but most notably to the drafting and promulgation of the famous Code of Hammurabi, consisting of 282 laws, which deeply influenced the lives of the people not only in his era, but also in subsequent times. The Code of Hammurabi is preserved in a solemn place at the Louvre Museum in Paris, France today. It is engraved on a stele approximately 8 feet tall, along with many other copies held in museums and important buildings around the world, from the headquarters of the United Nations to prominent locations in the United States. Although the code is not divided into specific branches of law, its structure is divided into groups of statutes with various provisions and contents. The content of the code reflects a broad overview of economic, political, cultural, and social activities, as well as all aspects related to the material and spiritual life of the Babylonian people. A particular point in the process of drafting the Code of Hammurabi is the absence of the predominance of criminal law over all legal relations. This highlights the difference between Hammurabi's legal system and the law of the Western Zhou period. While Western Zhou law focused on the application of penalties, the Code of Hammurabi emphasized regulating every aspect of society. The Code of Hammurabi also demonstrates the inheritance from previous legal systems, while being strong in the power of the law. This combination of tradition and state power is most evident in the regulations regarding marriage and family. The Code especially focuses on family relationships, such as parent-child relationships. A clear example of this is the provision in Article 168 of the Code, where the resolution of conflicts between parents and children is addressed. If a father wants to disown his son, he says to the judge, "I disown my son." The judge must thoroughly investigate the matter. If the son is not guilty of any crime that would warrant severing of blood relations, then the father cannot disown him. The Code of Hammurabi is also notable for the development of civil law, regulating relationships between individuals in detail and clarity. In many provisions, there is an emphasis on building sustainable and fair labor relations. This reflects progress and innovation in building a legal system that suits the practical needs of ancient society. The Code of Hammurabi is not only a historical legal document, but also a valuable resource that helps us understand ancient Babylonian society better. It contains many progressive provisions with long-lasting value over time. In addition to protecting the interests of the ruling class, the Code also emphasizes protecting the vulnerable, demonstrating a progressive spirit in the field of law. For example, the Code prohibits the practice of seizing the body of a debtor's child as a hostage in someone else's house, limits the duration of being a hostage to only 3 years, and protects the rights of minors and foster children. Especially, the Code is even more progressive in the application of penalties. There is a proposed system of criminal sanctions to deal with various types of offenders, from mild to severe. However, the application of severe penalties is limited to certain subjects. The Code of Hammurabi is particularly advanced and detailed in its provisions regarding civil law, especially concerning contractual relationships, a crucial aspect of ancient Babylonian society. The regulations are not only progressive in content, but also very precise in legislative technique. In regulating sales contracts, the law clearly stipulates 3 necessary conditions. The seller must be the true owner of the property must have utility value, and the contract must have a witness. The absence of any of these conditions renders the contract void. Violators will face severe penalties, even potentially with their lives. This provision reflects progress and care in protecting the rights of buyers and preventing fraud in transactions. In regulating loan contracts, the law also clearly stipulates interest rates and collateral, depending on the type of contract. However, it can be observed that the law primarily protects the interests of the ruling class, while poor laborers are often disadvantaged in this legal system. This reflects class discrimination and is a limitation of the Hammurabi Code, as well as many other legal systems worldwide, where class division still exists. Marriage and family provisions. The Code of Hammurabi not only focuses on imposing strict penalties. Among the most important provisions of this code are those concerning families, especially marriage and family, an integral part of ancient Babylonian society. These provisions are very detailed and humane, while also reflecting some rules regarding gender and social roles. The code clearly stipulates marriage procedures, including the need for documentation to protect the rights of both parties in case of divorcee. This is a progression compared to some other ancient East Asian countries, where marriage often only involved buying a wife without protection for women. Another humane provision is the prohibition of husbands abandoning wives with leprosy and the protection of the wife's rights in this case. However, the code also reflects a dual standard regarding gender and social status. Women generally have lower status, and husbands are often considered the heads of households. The husband's rights are usually more dominant, and if there are no children, he has the right to divorce or sell his wife. The penalties for adultery are also unfair between men and women, indicating gender inequality in ancient Babylonian society. Property inheritance provisions. According to the perspective of Nguyen, inheritance is the right to receive property from the deceased, according to the legal procedures. This includes inheriting estates and fulfilling the property obligations of the deceased. The Hammurabi Code distinguishes two main forms of inheritance: inheritance by law and inheritance by will, with inheritance by will becoming more common over time. Inheritance by will involves carrying out the subjective will of the property owner, deciding on the use of assets after death. The law limits the freedom of the testator, especially stipulating that a father cannot deprive his son of inheritance if the son commits only a first offense and it is not serious. Inheritance by law occurs in cases where there is no will or the will is invalid. In this case, the deceased's property will be divided according to the law, transferred to those entitled to inherit according to the law's provisions. Initially, the property was usually concentrated in the lineage, but later it shifted to the family with inheritance rights and became the common property of the family. Unlike some other ancient Eastern countries where only sons could inherit, the Hammurabi Code does not differentiate between sons and daughters, granting them equal inheritance rights. This could be seen as a minor gender equality in Lycian. In ancient Lycian society, the criminal justice field is where class inequality and classism are most evident. Hammurabi's laws establish principles to protect the rights and status of husbands and fathers within families, while reflecting the vulnerability and susceptibility of women in this society. The laws also protect social relationships, such as property rights, slavery, and human dignity. Hammurabi recognizes three social classes: the upper class, free citizens without land, and slaves. The penalties are stipulated very strictly, especially for offenses against high-status individuals. Gender equality between men and women is shown through both sons and daughters having equal inheritance rights. However, the law still upholds principles of equal retaliation, allowing punishment for those unrelated to the offender. However, the law also distinguishes between unintentional and intentional crimes, creating a fairer judicial system. A progressive point in criminal law is the strong distinction made between unintentional and intentional crimes. For example, the law states that in a fight resulting in death, if the perpetrator proves that the killing was unintentional, they will not be sentenced to death, only to a penalty. This is one of the objective provisions in the trial of criminal cases. This makes the legal system more equitable. In ancient society, litigation is an important process for resolving cases. The Hammurabi Code establishes many provisions regarding legal procedures such as arrest, detention, and trial, while also creating basic principles such as public trials and the importance of evidence. The provisions regarding the responsibility of judges are a highlight. forcing them to be accountable and compensate if errors are found in their judgments. This encourages objective and cautious work from the judges, ensuring fairness in the trial process. However, the code also has certain limitations, such as not being highly abstract and having lengthy provisions, describing specific behaviors in detail. Many provisions relate to criminal law and pay little attention to civil relationships. It should also be noted that most criminals are sentenced to death, leaving no room for correction and rehabilitation. The Hammurabi Code, though primitive, has had a significant impact on the legal systems of other ancient peoples, especially the legal system of ancient Jews. Although some vestiges of ancient legal customs still exist, the Hammurabi Code has introduced many new elements, especially regarding the law of owning slaves. The great significance of the Hammurabi Code is that the new elements of the law of owning slaves to a certain extent have promoted the continued elimination of traces of the feudal system and strengthened the entire system of owning slaves in general. The Code of Hammurabi is one of the oldest legal documents in the world, but this is not entirely accurate. The Sumerian law of Ur-Nammu is considered older, but Hammurabi's code is certainly the most detailed, famous, and well-preserved legal document from ancient times. While Ur-Nammu only includes 5 laws, Hammurabi's code has 282 laws. The statue of Hammurabi on the Bazan stone tablet depicts him as a king, laying the foundation for a just society, where everyone must obey the laws and order without class discrimination. After the era of Hammurabi, his eldest son, Samsu-iluna, was designated as his successor. Records from Luna's archives reveal that he spent considerable time in Mari during the reign of Zimri-Lim, although his exact identity and activities there remain unknown. In 1750 BCE, Hammurabi passed away due to illness, and Samsu-iluna ascended to become the 7th king of the Babylonian dynasty. During the initial 7 to 8 years of his reign, Samsu-iluna focused on economic issues and temple construction. However, in 1742 BCE, he faced his first challenge as ruler, a major uprising originating from the city of Larsa, led by a man named Rim-Sin. While some speculate that this could be the same Rim-Sin defeated by Hammurabi in 1763 BCE, most historians believe this to be a different individual entirely, known as Rim-Sin II. By the time Rim-Sin II surrendered to Hammurabi, he was an elderly man aged 60, 70, and lacked the capability to organize a comprehensive rebellion against Babylon. Cities within the kingdom increasingly spiraled out of control. In Uruk, following the example of Rim-Sin II, a self-proclaimed ruler named Rim-Anum declared independence for the city and crowned himself king. Other major cities also began their own uprisings. Rim-Anum and Rim-Sin II joined forces against Samsu-iluna, but later Rim-Anum betrayed and allied with Samsu-iluna, promising amnesty if he abandoned the rebellion. Just 2 years later, Samsu-iluna quelled the uprisings. He proclaimed to have defeated or killed at least 26 kings and leaders of the rebellion. In 1630 BCE, Hattuchili, a Hittite king, ruled over a vast kingdom in central Anatolia. Desiring to expand his territory into the wealthier regions of the Levant and Mesopotamia, he initiated a series of conquests, hoping to acquire the treasures believed to exist in the large kingdoms to his southeast. Hattuchili launched a powerful attack on the kingdom of Yamhad, but ultimately failed to capture its capital, Aleppo. However, his grandson and heir, Mursili the Frere, later achieved this goal in 1595 BCE. Using resources plundered from Yamhad, Mursili I led his Hittite army over 2,000 km along the Euphrates River towards central Babylon. Along the way, they ruthlessly attacked and looted many cities, notably Babylon. These attacks targeted not only material wealth, but also the spirit and religion of the local population, including the destruction of temples, including the main temple of the god Marduk. After ravaging Babylon, Mursili did not stay long. He returned to the Hittite capital of Hattusha, However, on his way back, he was assassinated, though the motive and perpetrator remain a major mystery in history. In the 16th century BCE, the Kassite tribe emerged as the most powerful rulers in Babylon, gaining complete control over the city. The Kassites continued to rule Babylon for over 400 years, establishing the longest-lasting dynasty in the ancient history of the region of Mesopotamia. Due to their unique language and ethnic identity, this reign came to be known as the Kassite dynasty of Babylon. Gandash is known as the first Kassite king, and his successor was his revered son, Agum the Great. With the aim of unifying Babylon under their rule, the Kassite kings initiated a campaign against the Sealand dynasty. The Sealand dynasty had previously occupied territories once belonging to Rimsin, including major cities like Uruk, Isin, and Nippur. The Kassites sought complete consolidation of Babylonian territories. By 1475 BCE, the Kassites had successfully integrated the entire southern Mesopotamia, marking the resurgence of Babylon as an independent kingdom after 300 years. Alongside political consolidation, the Babylonian economy experienced significant development, expanding its influence in the Gulf region. Cultural and religious structures, such as the temple dedicated to the goddess Inanna in the city of Uruk, were also reinforced and expanded. The Sea Peoples, also known as the People of the Sea, hailed from distant and mysterious lands, where their identity and origins remain shrouded in mystery. Under their fearsome name, the Sea Peoples evoke images of mighty and uncontrollable forces, emerging from the sea like destructive powers to ravage and invade coastal regions. Pharaoh Ramses III of Egypt recorded the devastation wrought by the Sea Peoples on the walls of the temple at Medinet Habu. The accounts tell of the havoc they wreaked, laying waste to many lands from Kate, Kode, Karkemish, Arzawa to Alashia. They plundered, massacred the populace, and turned once flourishing places into ruins. Among the towns ravaged, Ugarit, a renowned trading city on the northern coast of Syria, stands as a prime example. Ugarit had been a vital commercial center along the Mediterranean coastline for millennia. Its merchants and sailors had amassed wealth and success, building a magnificent and prosperous city by the sea. However, this prosperity attracted the attention of the Sea Peoples, making Ugarit one of the victims of their onslaught. What's particularly noteworthy about the Sea Peoples is their sudden appearance without prior warning, and their disappearance from the world's view as swiftly as they emerged. Coastal cities in Palestine suffered a similar fate, with Aleppo in Syria and Emar along the Euphrates River being destroyed in similar fashion. The Sea Peoples are often imagined as ruthless seafaring raiders, laying waste to cities and penetrating deep into the hinterlands. They resemble the barbaric Vikings of the Middle Ages or the savage Huns under Attila's rule. They are marauding bands constantly seeking places to occupy and destroy. The two great empires of Egypt and Assyria, which survived the Sea Peoples' onslaught, both faced significant challenges from these forces. The kingdom of Assyria was steadily expanding, evolving from a small town named Ashur to extending its influence through extensive trade activities across northern Mesopotamia and southeastern Anatolia. By the 15th century BCE, Assyria had become a vassal state of the powerful kingdom of Mitanni. Assyrian kings had previously attempted to rebel against and resist the armies of Mitanni, but without success. However, by 1350 BCE, Assyria rose once again and decisively defeated the forces of Mitanni, ending Mitanni's control over northern Mesopotamia and elevating Assyria to a new height of power in the region. To maintain peace and cooperation, the Assyrian king Ashur-uballit arranged for his daughter, Mubalitat Sharua, to marry Burna-Buriash II, the king of Babylon at the time. This collaboration between the two empires strengthened the relationship between Assyria and Babylon. Their son, Kara-Hardash, ascended to the throne of Babylon in 1333 BCE, but his reign was short-lived, as he was killed by his own army just a year later. In the uprising that followed this event, Assyrian soldiers chose Nazi Bugash as the new king. Ashur-uballit, enraged by the death of his grandson, marched into Babylon and installed Kurigalzu-Disa as the new king. Assyria, especially after absorbing Mitanni, grew stronger and emerged as a dominant power. King Tukulti-Ninurta Bediru of Assyria, from 1243 BCE to 1207 BCE, unilaterally broke the peace treaty with the Hittites to strengthen the western border and then advance southward to attack Babylon. Their goal was not to occupy Babylon, but merely to defeat it. The kings who ruled Babylon during this period often lasted only a year and were usually puppets, reflecting the political instability within the kingdom. In 627 BCE, the Assyrian-appointed ruler of Babylon, Kandalanu, passed away, leaving the Babylonian throne vacant for nearly a year. During this period, Nabopolassar, a new ruler, began his reign in November 626 BCE. However, the Assyrian king at the time, Sin-shara-ishkun, refused to recognize Nabopolassar and expelled him, forcing him to flee south to the city of Uruk. There were rumors that Nabopolassar's family had origins there, and thus, Sealand, a coastal city, provided refuge and a base for the new king to resist Assyria for several years. By the end of 620 BCE, Nabopolassar had gained control over virtually all of Babylonia, including the city of Nippur. The conflict between Babylon and Assyria continued, leading to a stalemate. As history shows, Assyria had often been driven out of Babylon in the past, only to return with vengeance. In reality, Assyria remained a looming threat, if not dealt with decisively. Despite Nabopolassar's support from tribes within the city, it was still not enough to stop the Assyrians. Many ancient Near Eastern peoples shared similar sentiments to Nabopolassar. The Medes, for example, had also suffered greatly under various Assyrian kings in their homeland. The Median army advanced into Assyria's Arapaka region and captured the city of Ashur in 614 BCE. Following this event, Nabopolassar and the Babylonian army joined forces with Cyaxares, the Median leader, with the goal of establishing an alliance before each side pursued its own campaign. They reunited in the summer of 612 BCE when Babylon and the Medes joined forces to seize Nineveh, the capital of Assyria at the time, perhaps the wealthiest and most beautiful city in the world. Despite a 3-month siege, Sin-shara-ishkun continued to command his army to retreat westward. The new king of Assyria, Ashur-uballit, reorganized forces in the cities of Carchemish and Haran, with the support of Egyptian allies, to resist. However, Assyria was permanently wiped off the map by 610 BCE. The fall of Assyria was unthinkable for most ancient Near Eastern nations. In 605 BCE, Nabopolassar's son achieved victory over Egypt, paving the way for Babylon to occupy the entire Levant region. Shortly after Nabopolassar's death, his son Nabopolassar-Set ascended to the throne of Babylon. This new monarch continued campaigns across the Levant, subjugating areas that resisted his rule and levying taxes to embellish the capital city of Babylon. Essentially, the Babylonians had seized control of nearly the entire Mediterranean region. Nabopolassar II is regarded as one of the greatest kings of his time, a warrior, a just ruler, and a patriot above all else. Even at the height of his power, he remained relatively humble for a ruler who had achieved so much. However, Nabopolassar II could not suppress Egypt as Assyria had done before, primarily due to rebellions from Judah, Phoenicia, and Aram. The kingdom of Judah recognized Babylon, once an ally, had become a greedy and ruthless power, but it was too late. In 601 BCE, King Jehoiakim of Judah openly challenged Babylon, and Nabuchodonosor attacked Jerusalem in 598 or 597 BCE. After the siege, Jehoiakim died, and his son Jehoiakim succeeded him, but was captured and sent to Babylon as a prisoner. In this war, Babylon destroyed the Temple of Jerusalem, and deported a large number of captives to Babylon as exiles. However, there was one rebellious region that escaped control, at least for a time. That was the Phoenician city under the rule of Tyre. The center of Tyre was located on an island and evaded prolonged attacks for 13 years. Tyre reached an agreement with Nabopolassar II, allowing them to maintain local sovereignty, while Babylon would have suzerainty and use of their large fleet. This fleet later became part of the Babylonian navy. Along with restoring independence, a new era began, and construction activities flourished throughout the country. Emperor Nabuchodonosor II ordered the reconstruction of all major structures of the empire, especially the Etemenanki Ziggurat and the Ishtar Gate, the most prominent gateway among the 8 gates of Babylon. However, his most notable construction was the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, a symbol of wealth and romance, built as a gift for Queen Amytis. While many historians have documented the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, it is noteworthy that there is no tangible evidence of ancient documents from the Babylonians proving its existence. Herodotus, a famous Greek historian of the 5th century BCE, in his works, does not mention this area when describing Babylon. In fact, even documents from the time of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, do not mention any hanging gardens in the city. This absence raises questions about the accuracy of the association between the Hanging Gardens of Babylon and Babylon itself, and whether there might be another explanation for its origin and location. Some experts have hypothesized that the Hanging Gardens of Babylon may not actually have been located in Babylon, but could have been in another city. There are suggestions that it may have been in the ancient city of Nineveh, near Mosul in northern Iraq. This opens up a new avenue of research, seeking evidence and information to verify or refute this hypothesis. Part of this argument stems from considering the descriptions of the heritage in ancient documents. Part of the issue may be confusion between Babylon and Nineveh, 2 major cities in ancient Mesopotamia. Greek documents often confuse these 2 kingdoms, and this misunderstanding may have led to confusion about the location of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Recently, Dr. Stephanie Daly, an archaeologist at the University of Oxford, proposed an interesting hypothesis about the location of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Based on meticulous research of ancient documents and clues in museums, Daly suggests that the Hanging Gardens of Babylon may have been in Nineveh instead of Babylon. She argues that confusion between the 2 cities and inaccurate differentiation between them may have caused a misunderstanding of the location of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Part of Daly's argument is based on the discovery of some new evidence. In the works of Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, recorded from the time of his grandson, Ashurbanipal, there is a description of orchards with a slope created to mimic the Amanus mountain range. Water was brought up through pipelines and water channels, a description quite similar to what is described about the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. This opens up a new possibility that the Hanging Gardens of Babylon may have actually been a creation of Sennacherib, not of Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. Thus, this famous garden might have been located in the ancient city of Nineveh, near Mosul, 563 kilometers north of modern-day Iraq. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, is praised as a remarkable feat of engineering, with a series of colorful terraced gardens adorned with all kinds of trees, shrubs, and vines, creating a lush and sparkling landscape built on mud brick structures. The Hanging Gardens are believed to have been built in Babylon, near the city of Hilla in the Babel province, Iraq today. The name Hanging Gardens comes from the Greek kremastos, referring to planting trees on a high structure like a balcony or terrace. Josephus, Diodorus Siculus, and Strabo describe the Hanging Gardens of Babylon as a square courtyard with each side about 120 millimeters long, designed in a terraced form, with the top tier about 25 millimeters high. The walls, about 7 m thick, were built of bricks. The terraces were deep enough to accommodate the roots of the largest trees, and the irrigation system was supplied by screw pumps, bringing water up from the Euphrates River. The hanging gardens of Babylon were adorned with various types of trees such as olive, oak from the Caucasus, myrtle, almond, cherry, laurel, grape, fig, etc. According to the writings of the Babylonian priest Berossus, around 290 BCE, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon were built by Emperor Nebuchadnezzar II as a gift for Queen Amytis, a Mede, to provide her relaxation and reminiscent of her homeland in the Zagros Mountains, where there were lush green hills and valleys. Indeed, if Nabopolassar II had truly built the Hanging Gardens, then it is true that despite his military campaigns and conquests, laying the foundation for the Babylonian Empire, ultimately he is most remembered for the magnificent gift he bestowed upon the woman he loved. As part of Nabopolassar II's plan to beautify the capital, the construction of the Ishtar Gate was initiated. The Ishtar Gate, also known as the Gate of the Sun, is the eighth gate among the main gates surrounding the inner city of Babylon, the capital of the ancient Babylonian Empire. It is the largest and most elaborate gateway of the city. The name of the Ishtar Gate is derived from the goddess Ishtar. The gate itself is a double gate, and to the south lies a spacious waiting room. Adorned with alternating rows of dragons and bulls, the front face of the gate displays glazed bricks in shades of gold and brown surrounded by blue glazed bricks, believed to be made of lapis lazuli, although there is still some debate on this matter. Standing over 38 feet, 11.5 meter tall, and approximately 49 feet, 15 centimeters wide, the gate encompasses a vast forecourt to its south. Connected to the gate is the processional way, a paved corridor adorned with over 120 sculpted lions, flowers and glazed bricks in gold hues on walls towering over 50 feet. At the top of the gate is the depiction of the goddess Ishtar, the Babylonian goddess of war and love, intricately carved. Bulls, lions, and dragons serve as symbolic representations of various deities. Lions often associated with Ishtar, bulls with Adad, and dragons with Marduk, signifying reverence to the divine. The ceremonial way extends over half a mile, used for New Year processions, featuring statues of the gods parading down and a red and gold paved road. Each brick bears a small prayer from Nebuchadnezzar to the chief deity Marduk. There is a famous myth surrounding the Tower of Babel, known for its rebellion and the dispersal of humanity. After the Great Flood, the descendants of Noah migrated eastward and settled in the land of Shinar. There, they all spoke the same language. They decided to construct a towering edifice, the Tower of Babel, symbolizing human pride and the desire to reach heaven without the intervention of God. The biblical record states that the construction of the Tower of Babel began in Babylon by the command of King Nimrod. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city, with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." They commenced their work, and it must be said that they worked with all their might. They molded bricks, many bricks, and transported them heavily to the construction site. They piled bricks with mortar higher and higher each day until the tower stood tall and splendid like a shrine to foreign gods. And they continued to build upwards. They did not need a polished and expansive tower, but they wanted their tower to be the greatest construction in the world, so they could point to it with pride in their achievements. King Nimrod sought to establish relations with the gods residing in the heavens, and his greatest aspiration was to converse with supernatural beings. However, the goal of the people and the king was not to honor God, but to build a name for themselves. "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth." Seeing the ambition of humanity, God used his power to bring disaster upon them. He caused the construction workers to suddenly speak different languages, so they could no longer communicate and understand each other, thus halting the construction of the Tower of Babel. Humanity dispersed into groups with their own languages, eventually developing into separate nations. Initially, when everyone spoke the same language. Now they could not understand each other because languages had been divided into many tongues. Humanity was scattered across the earth. The Tower of Babel, a symbol of human strength and unity, was never completed due to the loss of unity and cohesion in language. When referring to the Tower of Babel and the city of Babylon, the Bible simply calls them that city and that tower. Babel in ancient Hebrew carries the meaning of confusion, chaos, like a jumble. Thus, this legend became known as Babel or Babalu. According to research, the tower shape resembled the oldest pyramids in Egypt. These were structures with gradually decreasing sizes, stacked on top of each other into separate tiers, with a sloping surface or a spiral staircase leading from one tier to another. Each tier typically bore a different color, reflecting offerings to various planets, and the tower's 4 corners faced the 4 cardinal points of the compass. At the top of the tower was usually a temple, doubling as an observatory. The interior of the tower was often made of sun-dried clay, while the exterior surface was covered with baked bricks. A special type of asphalt found in the Babylonian region, similar to bitumen, was often used instead of mortar during construction. This type of tower was commonly referred to as a zikkurat. One cannot ignore Peter Bruegel's paintings. These 2 paintings provide the most vivid depiction of the Tower of Babel. In this painting, Bruegel does not focus too much on the biblical story but rather emphasizes the process of building the Tower of Babel. Bruegel vividly depicts thousands of people toiling strenuously to construct the tower. The newly molded bricks still bear a bright red color. Due to the elongated construction process, the bricks at the bottom appear slightly grayish. The structure features a system of ramps for ascending, but it seems that it is not designed with any living quarters. This indicates that the entire tower serves only one purpose: to build higher and higher. Next to the tower, Bruegel portrays a bustling harbor, where ships have just finished unloading construction materials. Not all construction materials arrive by ship. We can clearly see the quarried stone blocks around the tower. A nearby river provided clay for firing the bricks. Construction materials are lifted by a crane system along the tower. At first, it is thought that Bruegel's Tower of Babel is divided into tiers, but upon closer inspection, you will discover that the tower is not simply tiered, but is actually a spiral going up. There is no obvious stratification. In the imaginative world of the Babylonians, no deity loomed larger and more significant than the god Marduk. He was revered as the epitome of victory, power, and justice, carrying with him a mystical history and a majestic appearance that could not be denied. In Babylonian mythology, Marduk was not only the highest deity in their pantheon, but also the head of the universe, the supreme god whom people invoked when they needed courage and triumph in their daily lives. He was envisioned as a deity with long beard and hair, adorned in royal attire and possessing mighty weapons, ready to face any challenge. Through wisdom and strength, he defeated the dragon Tiamat, symbolizing chaos and disorder, to create the world. His power lay not only in his bravery but also in his wisdom and decisiveness. According to legend, Marduk was not only the victor in the struggle against primordial chaos, but also the founder of Babylon, the great and prosperous city that he protected and nurtured. He was regarded as the creator of the world, arranging all things in order, keeping the universe balanced and harmonious. The sanctity and grandeur of Babylon were inseparable from this deity, and every trace of the city contained the greatness and power of Marduk. Marduk was not just a symbol of strength and power, but also of justice and creativity. He ensured that everything in the world was protected and managed fairly, ensuring that all existence in the world was safeguarded and managed justly. Each victory of Marduk was seen as evidence of his justice and power, instilling a sense of security and reverence in the Babylonian people. In addition to worship and rituals and ceremonies, Marduk also appeared in Babylonian art and culture. His image was often depicted on city walls, statues, and in mural paintings, as well as described in literary works and poetry. The power and beauty of Marduk made people respect and worship him as their noble god. In the Babylonian pantheon of mythology, Ishtar is considered the highest goddess. a symbol of feminism and spiritual strength. The name Ishtar means desert, and was imagined as a female goddess of strength and power of the desert. With her stunning beauty and irresistible charm, Ishtar attracts all eyes and conquers the hearts of everyone, both men and women. Ishtar is not only the god of love and beauty, but also a symbol of strength and independence. In legends, Ishtar is often depicted as a brave and courageous goddess, willing to face all challenges and dangers to protect those he loves. One of Ishtar's most outstanding characteristics is her multidimensionality. Ishtar is not only a symbol of love and sex, but also a symbol of independence and power. However, Ishtar's multidimensionality is also shown through the different aspects of her personality. On the one hand, Ishtar is a symbol of youth and life, expressed through enjoying the beauty of nature and enjoying life. On the other hand, Ishtar can also become vicious and brutal, ready to impose her power and defeat her enemies. Adad was often symbolized as a god of rain, thunder, and storms, and he was considered the protector of farms and land, providing rain for crops that was indispensable. It is an important part of land life in the alluvial lands of the Tigris and Euphrates river basins, where agriculture depends heavily on seasonal rainfall. Adad is also honored as the god of justice and power, and he is often considered the god who judges cases and ensures fairness in society. As a god of thunder and storms, Adad also represents the strength and power of nature, and he is worshipped and prayed to when people need protection and support in daily life. Rituals for Adad often take place on days of heavy rain or when storms are threatening. The people of Babylon often held festivals and rituals dedicated to Adad to pray for monsoon rains, to ensure fertile crops, and bring prosperity to their land and lives. Shrines and temples dedicated to Adad are often built in rural areas where people can pray and honor him as the protector and blessing of their lives. Shamash not only represents a source of light and energy, but is also a symbol of sanity, understanding, and justice. Shamash is often depicted as a bright-faced deity, radiating light from within, often placed in a circle or crown of fire. He is often imagined riding in a chariot or driving a sun chariot, controlling the sun's path through the sky. Every morning, Shamash is believed to come out of the east gate and into the sky, shining down on the earth and bringing life and energy to all living things. God Sin is often considered the god of light in the darkness, bringing protection and blessings to those who worship him. In this role, Sin not only represents the beauty and romance of the moon, but is also a symbol of the mystery and power of the universe. Often depicted as a moon-faced deity, lit from within, Sin is often imagined standing against a dark background, illuminating the sky with the soft light of the moon. He is often depicted wearing a lunar crown and holding a lunar ruler, symbols of his power and control over the universe. In addition to his role as a lunar deity, Sin is also considered the protector of those who walk in darkness and those in trouble. He is worshipped as a protector, bringing protection and well-being during difficult and dark times. Part of Babylonian religion were rituals dedicated to Sin, intended to honor and pray for his protection and blessings. During special occasions, such as the full moon day, Babylonians often held incense offerings and prayers at shrines and temples dedicated to Sin, wishing to receive his protection and protection. In 562 BCE, the departure of Nabopolassar II marked the end of an era, heralding the gradual decline of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. His son, Amel-Marduk, ascended to the throne, but his reign began to falter within a brief 2 years. Babylonian historian Berosus, writing in the 4th century BCE, recorded that Amel-Marduk was slain by his brother-in-law Neriglissar, who then took the throne and ruled for 4 years. Some scholars believe that Neriglissar may have married Kashaya, daughter of Nabopolassar II, which could have inspired his claim to the throne. However, Neriglissar quickly passed away, and his son, Labashi-Marduk, succeeded him but was also killed by Nabonidus, the son of Atagupi, a devotee of the god Marduk. Initially a humble official, Nabonidus became embroiled in the plot to overthrow Labashi-Marduk and seize power. Upon becoming king, he restored the temple of the god Sin in Haran, causing tension with the followers of Marduk. His decision to centralize the administration in Tema, outside the metropolitan area, made controlling the Babylonian Empire more challenging, especially with threats from Mendes and Persia emerging. Nabonidus' absence from the New Year festival led the Babylonians to believe that the empire's existence depended on the favor of Marduk, sparking discontent in society. The external threat from the Medes became increasingly apparent as they transitioned from Babylon's allies to adversaries. Nabonidus formed an alliance with King Cyrus of Persia, who, after overthrowing the Median kingdom, became the ruler of the eastern Zagros region. At this juncture, Nabonidus realized that Persia was the true threat, but it was too late. In 540 BCE, King Cyrus of Persia initiated a campaign to conquer the Babylonian Empire. With military superiority and strategic prowess, Cyrus's army defeated the Babylonian forces led by Nabonidus. The city of Babylon was deemed impregnable, yet its sole weakness lay in the Euphrates River flowing through its center. The Babylonians had installed metal grills across the river to allow water to flow through the city, while preventing external intrusion, but these grills did not reach the riverbed. Cyrus positioned a strong force where the river entered the city and another at the point where it exited, while he personally led a third contingent to dig a canal, diverting water from the Euphrates into a reservoir outside the walls, causing the river's flow to decrease significantly within hours. The Persian forces swiftly took advantage and breached the city. Due to its vast size, as the area adjacent to the walls fell into the hands of the Persian army, those in the central area of the city, coincidentally celebrating a nocturnal festival at that time, continued reveling until dawn, when all was already settled. Emperor Cyrus entered Babylon, proclaiming himself as the liberator of the Babylonian people from the rule of Nabonidus. He also declared himself as the true patron of the god Marduk, whom Nabonidus had neglected. Cyrus's victory did not bring harm to the city of Babylon and its neighboring regions, as the Persian army was instructed to respect the religious beliefs of the Babylonians and not to instill fear in them. The Babylonian Empire had completely collapsed and became a part of the Persian Empire. This conquest enriched the Persian Empire and showcased the wealth of the Babylonian region. From the early days of ancient Babylon, when it was just a small town on the banks of the Euphrates River, to the era of great kings like Hammurabi and Nebuchadnezzar II, this empire played a significant role in shaping the history of the ancient Near East. The historic battles of Babylon, from wars of conquest to confrontations with formidable adversaries like Assyria and Persia, established the reputation and authority of this empire. The steadfast spirit and determination of the Babylonian kings kept the empire alive and thriving through many difficult periods and challenges. Ultimately, the end of Babylon with the fall of Neo-Babylon under the invasion of Cyrus the Great of the Achaemenid Empire marked a new chapter in the history of Mesopotamia. Although Babylon no longer existed as an independent empire, its cultural and historical legacy continued to live on in the minds and hearts of people. The image of Babylon still persists, reminding us of the rise and fall of empires and highlighting the beauty and power of ancient civilization. What do you think about the Babylonian Empire? Was it as magnificent as imagined? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button to continue the journey of exploring ancient history with us. Thank you for your attention.